We're going to start off in Detroit today because the Jalen Duren contract situation just got an added wrinkle if a report is to be believed. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And while Jalen Duren had a monster regular season, there are some reportedly in Detroit that may not want to pay him because they believe that they need to invest more and prepare for Ausar Thompson and his extension. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to go back into the Kawhi Leonard situation again because reportedly Kawhi believes that the trade will be finalized before training camp. And we're going to look at De'Aaron Fox and the San Antonio Spurs renewing their commitment to De'Aaron Fox. We're going to talk about all that plus more right after this.
Welcome to the number one place for your daily basketball news and analysis, NBA Central.
What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome to another episode of the Full Court Podcast. My name is Haize, but more importantly, you guys can follow us at the Full Court YT on every social media platform we happen to be on. With that said, let's go and get into this content for today, y'all. We're going to start off in Detroit, as I said. We're going to come out with this one, right? This one came from Vincent Goodwill, who said this. There's a lot of people within the Pistons organization that view Ausar Thompson as the second best player on the team and not Jalen Duren. This has affected Duren's negotiations with the Pistons. Now, Jalen Duren last season got an all-star selection. He was an all-NBA team player. He was one of the better defensive bigs in the league throughout the season. And while, yes, there were absolutely some questionable play from him in the playoffs that you just can't overlook in contract negotiations, it does seem that right now it seems that, that this may be part of what the wrinkle is in Detroit. Like, are they? This is complete speculation on my part. This is not part of Goodwill's report here. But does that mean that there are some in Detroit that feel like maybe we can find a center that better fits us long term rather than locking ourselves into Jalen Duren? Or if we are going to, let's make sure that it's not an overpay to where we look at it later and say maybe it affects us, keep other players. We don't know, right? Jalen Duren is coming off his best regular season to date, despite what the playoffs said. He averaged 19.5 points, 10.5 rebounds, 2 assists through 70 games played as well. But when you look at the postseason, 10 points per game, 8.5 rebounds per game as well. And even with Detroit coming off a 60-win season, this is where the era of the NBA is. When you have the second tax apron, you have to be very thoughtful of not only how you're paying players now, but how that contract could age, right? So here's a question that we have in regards to this one. Should Ausar Thompson's rise affect how Detroit pays Jalen Duren? That is the question here. The side of this is yes, you need to be careful on how you're paying players regardless, right? If the organization truly views Ausar Thompson as their second best player, and that therefore it leads that they don't feel like Jalen Duren is worth a max level contract because they feel like they're going to be giving Ausar Thompson one, then the Pistons have the right to build around the hierarchy that they see their players within, and there's not a negative part of it. Of course, you have Jalen Duren's playoff production, which dipped as well, and things like that. And centers can be very tricky to max because if they aren't dominant in playoff matchups, or if the type of center, we've seen centers that are very good in the regular season get played off the court, in the playoffs or be unplayable. We've seen that happen. That's not a Jalen Duren exclusive thing. That's something that we've seen happen throughout the NBA. So I can't really blame them for questioning that to a degree when it comes to Jalen Duren. But here's the thing. I still think that Jalen Duren has shown ability that he deserves some bit of the priority there. Despite the playoffs, what he's done in the regular season can't be ignored. The chemistry with Cade Cunningham can't be ignored. The fact that he was a super big part of a 60-win team, it can't be ignored. Yes, you can love Ausar Thompson. You can even love what he does and think that it's better for your team long run than Jalen Duren, but it doesn't mean that Jalen Duren is just replaceable. It doesn't mean that. So the question now becomes about, is it a realistic thing for Jalen Duren to take the qualifying offer? We've talked about this before. Taking the qualifying offer brings huge risk for any player that thinks to do it. Yes, it gives players the control. It gives them, control over the situation. It means that they can get back into the free agent market as a young player and be unrestricted. But at the same time, it's an inherent risk because then, players who take the qualifying offer very rarely ever return to the team that they took the qualifying offer for. So then the Pistons may not be prioritized, or injury or another playoff run like that. It completely ruins any type of value that he has. Now, if he does have another monster season, the market could explode. If he has and fixes his playoff concerns, the market's going to explode even further. Like, those things are there. But it is a dangerous gamble that you would leave guaranteed money on the table. Because even if he does take the deal that the Pistons are offering, you would still leave almost $100 million guaranteed on the table to then go and take a huge risk, which injuries for big men and stuff like that, another rough playoff run could completely tank your value. So here's the question when it comes down to it. the future of Jalen Duren, the future of the Detroit Pistons, which player should they view as their second most important player? Ausar Thompson has two-way upside. The wing defense, the athleticism, the playoff traits that he did show, and the way that he can impact games without needing a bunch of offensive touches is special. And it makes sense that a lot internally in that Detroit Pistons organization would view him there. And if that offense develops or that shot starts falling a little bit more, the ceiling changes overnight. Modern playoff basketball, it values versatile wing players that can defend multiple positions. That's the path that Ausar Thompson is on. But when you look at the Jalen Duren side of it as well, he's already producing at a high level. You don't have to question if he's going to. He's already done that. His rebounding, the interior presence, all that type of stuff, the physicality that he brings in the paint as well, those are things that are already more proven than Ausar Thompson. So it comes down and looks at it like this. A 60-win team undervaluing the big man that helped them get to there could be something that does not pay off for them, or it could be something that ends up biting them in the ass. Or it could be something that we end up looking back on and saying, Detroit was right for questioning this, especially if they're able to make some other things shake. So I don't know. Again, I love to hear from Pistons fans in the comment section how you feel about this one. Where do you feel like this can go? I would love to hear that. Let me know what you guys think down below on that one. Next up, the Kawhi Leonard situation. This is a situation that it keeps going and it keeps going and it keeps going. This comes from Jake Fisher of the Stein Line that says this. Kawhi Leonard continues to operate under the belief that his trade to Toronto Raptors will be finalized before the start of training camp, despite the deal remaining on hold amid the NBA's ongoing investigation. The Raptors agreed to the trade on June 30th, sending Brandon Ingram, Grady Dick, 2 first-round picks, and 1 pick swap to the Clippers in exchange for Leonard. But paused the move on July 9th before the trade call due to the pending resolution of the league's probe. Leonard strongly believes that the trade will ultimately be completed, according to sources, allowing him to join Toronto ahead of September 28th's media day and subsequent training camp in Quebec City. The trade was reportedly structured with the expectation that Leonard, 35, would also negotiate a multi-year extension with the Raptors to extend his tenure beyond this coming season. So, with that, Kawhi Leonard expecting the trade to be finalized by training camp. Here's the thing. Should you still expect that with the new Daktronics thing that has come out? I say, let's talk about both sides of this. The side of yes, that you could still expect this to get done, is that something has to happen. The NBA can't leave this in flux because there are other deals, there are other players that could be. Both teams have agreed to the trade, and at this point, both teams has also made moves since agreeing to the trade that based off that trade going down. I've talked about it before. What happens with Rui Hachimura's contract if Kawhi Leonard's not done? The Ben Mathen part of it. There's a lot of parts in this that go. The Raptors want Kawhi Leonard there, right? And so much so that they were willing to discuss a multi-year extension to keep him there. And I think that it gives Toronto a proven championship star, and they're trying to make the next step as a franchise. I think this deal still gets done, but the risk is still real. The Clippers investigation is now in the 11th month of this investigation. And with the trade being paused, new accusations coming out, that it could lead to a serious situation where maybe Kawhi Leonard gets suspended. Maybe that does happen. And that would be a huge risk and a black eye for the Toronto Raptors to take, right? Now, the part of this that I do want to talk about as well that we haven't really talked about this. Should Toronto give Kawhi an extension, even if the trade clears? Mainly because even if the trade does clear, what could come after that? Because he could be suspended. He could, if some of these accusations are made to be true, not only did he violate the CBA, not just Steve Ballmer and the Clippers, him and his agent knowingly violated the CBA if that does happen. And so even if the trade does clear, and we've heard that this investigation can go on past 2027, let's say you make it through this season without the investigation coming to a close. You may want to delay extension even if Kawhi does want to return there, because what then happens at that point? You could have made it hands washed in that regard, right? So I do think that the Raptors are going to want some clarity before they buy all in on a multi-year extension, and then he turns around and gets suspended for a season or something. And also be careful, because he's 35 years old too. And with the investigation adding even more certainty to a player at that age, you got to be very, very concerned and mindful of what that could mean for your team. And we'll see what they end up doing with it. We'll see. Let me know what you guys think on that down below. With that said, let's move on to the next topic. One of the biggest talking points, after the finals was De'Aaron Fox and the San Antonio Spurs. He had a bad finals, even though he didn't have a bad playoffs overall. And according to ESPN, the San Antonio Spurs remain committed to De'Aaron Fox. That's despite the struggles in the NBA Finals. Reportedly, according to ESPN, they say this. Team sources add that the Spurs may not have made the NBA Finals without Fox's contributions in the playoffs. Mitch Johnson's decision over who starts at point guard between Fox and Dylan Harper next season will be determined by their play on the court. So while they're still committed to De'Aaron Fox, they aren't necessarily committed to De'Aaron Fox staying at the starting point guard position. I do think that Fox has earned the trust of the San Antonio Spurs. 18.6 points per game, 6.2 points last season. He gives them speed. He gives them rim pressure. He gives them a veteran guard and creation at that point guard position that you need, especially with Wemby on that team. But I think at the same time, Dylan Harper is there, and they have to realize that as Dylan Harper grows as a player, it could lessen the impact that De'Aaron Fox has and how much you play him. Also, Stephen Castle needs minutes, right? And so because of that, even though De'Aaron Fox did struggle when the stage got the brightest, you have to weigh these things together. Right now, the question becomes about is De'Aaron Fox and Castle together, is it overcrowded, or is it genius to have an abundance of talent? I think that it could work. Fox brings the downhill pressure. He brings the speed. Harper brings the size, scoring, and scoring upside. Castle gives them defense, toughness, and positional versatility. So I think that you have enough balance and a different set of skills there to where you can make it work. No problem, no harm, no foul there. Yes, it could get a bit messy on who closes, who does those type of things, but you let the game come to you in those regards. You don't have to decide that in August and before a season starts. You decide that game to game. You decide that depending on the matchup. You decide that if everybody eats, I don't foresee this, like if you're competing for a championship, like I don't think these players are going to let that get in the way of what they do if it's right for somebody to close over them. You just have to make it make sense and make sure you're winning games and that the player sacrifices make sense in that regard. As long as it does that, I think that's the most important thing here. So that's my thought process on it. You guys can let me know how you feel on it down below, but ultimately I think it'll be perfectly fine. I don't think it's going anywhere. I think that De'Aaron Fox staying in San Antonio is going to be fine there, and they'll work it out in the long run. Last topic of the day before we get out of here. Payton Pritchard is not worried about extension, even going into a prove-it year. This comes from Chris Fossberg of NBC Sports that says this. The Boston Celtics guard Payton Pritchard was a recent guest on the Celtics Talk podcast with Chris Fossberg. The two discussed several on-topics, including Pritchard's thoughts on being eligible to extend his contract this fall, saying this: "No, I don't think about it really. It's just not something I'm really looking at. I have 2 years on my contract, and it's just there's no rush on it. We'll talk about it, obviously, but we have a whole next year to talk about an extension. For me, it's just like focus on getting better and becoming the best basketball player I can possibly be." Now, we know that the Boston Celtics made a huge financial decision that they're saying was rooted in finances in trading Jalen Brown to the Philadelphia 76ers, right? But a prove-it year on another player, I do think could be motivation for it, right? Because at the end of the day is that motivation can fuel a bounce back. They blew a 3-1 lead, and that should bother the players on this team. Payton Pritchard says that, the team this summer, they all ate as a team. They focused, they played together, and then Boston is still a very talented team. And I also think that the Jalen Brown absence now gives this team a chance to build a new identity, even though it may be similar. But it could be a warning sign to this team. You lost a major star. The roster is less stable than it was before, and the Boston Celtics could be looking to further change their roster to build more around Jason Tatum and wherever they feel like they need to go now. Motivation is great, but motivation doesn't replace Jalen Brown of itself. You're going to need players to step up, play new roles, adapt to new roles, and grow as players. And Payton Pritchard may be one of those guys that can do that for the Boston Celtics team. But let me know what you guys think on that down below. As a matter of fact, let me know what you guys think on all the topics down below on today's episode. Make sure you guys like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell so you never miss an episode or a live stream. You can follow us at The Full Court YT on every social media platform. You can send us any feedback, questions, comments, concerns. NBACentralShow@gmail.com. And lastly, if you want to leave a text message and our voicemail for the mailbag, the number to do so, 773-270-2799. We're the #1 spot for everything basketball related, but that is thanks to you, lovely and beautiful people. And like I like to end every episode on, I'll catch you guys the next time I feel like making an episode. Probably tomorrow. Love you guys. Peace, y'all.
Been a presentation of the Breaks Media.